And I think we can begin now. So welcome everyone to this InfraNodus webinar, where we'll be talking about entity-driven SEO and LLMO with our special guest, Jack Boutchard. And he runs his own SEO agency, Exalt Growth, and he has been using InfraNodus for a while. So he will be sharing his very interesting workflows with us that he demonstrated to me a couple of weeks ago, and I found them really interesting and useful, and I'm really excited that he will share it with you today. I will also demonstrate some of the workflows that you can use in InfraNodus yourself as well, and hopefully you'll find it useful. We also have the new MCP server that I'm going to demonstrate after Jack's presentation, so that means that you can go into something like Claude, for example, or your favorite LLM, and then use InfraNodus insights to optimize your content and to see what people are searching for, what they find, how you can sort of optimize your content for that. And it's very important to note that this whole approach is useful not only for the people who are into marketing, but if you're a researcher and writer and you want to make sure that your ideas are seen and read by people, then this approach will be very useful for you as well, because you will find out how to understand what already exists out there on the internet, in the world, on the topic that you're interested in, what people are searching for in relation to that, and then sort of combine these two insights to better understand how you can write about the topic you're interested in a way that people will actually be able to find it. And I think we all, as writers and researchers, are interested in that. No one wants to write into emptiness. So this workshop and this presentation is going to be interesting not only for those who work in marketing and SEO, but also for anyone who works with content and text and wants to have their ideas be seen by other people. And as always, we have the chat that is available in our Zoom webinar, where you can ask any questions that you have, and we will be happy to answer them during our presentation. And then also you have the Q&A section as well, where you can also leave your questions as well. So we will monitor both of them, and we will attempt to respond to all of the questions you have, probably maybe not directly when you ask them, but a few minutes after. And then we will also run some polls, the results of which we will share with you during the webinar. So it's going to be interesting because you will also find out what tools other people use, what approaches they use, how they use InfraNodus, and so on. So I think you will find it quite interesting as well, because if you answer the questions in the poll, then you will be able to also know what the other people who are taking part in the webinar actually using it for. And we're also streaming this webinar live on YouTube. I'm going to send a link now to the webinar chat. So if you would like to review it after, you will be able to do so, and you can also share it with anyone else who's interested in this content. And I also just wanted to ask you that somebody writes in the chat if you can hear us well, if everything is okay, if you can see us well. And then we will take it from there, and I will pass it on to Jack to demonstrate his workflows. Great. Eric is writing that they hear us fine, so that's good. We can then begin.
Yeah.
Jack, to you.
Cool. Everyone hear me all right as well?
I'm not sure if I hear the sound.
Yep.
Okay, now it works.
Thanks. Yeah, Ryan, Chase. Yeah, so appears to be good. Yep. Thanks for the introduction, Dmitry. So yeah, like I'm Jack from Exalt Growth. So work with mostly SaaS e-commerce companies on sort of developing AI sort of first SEO strategies for that sort of evolving space that is SEO, GEO, AEO, LLMO, AI SEO, whatever sort of preferred acronym you have. So I'm going to run through some workflows for you guys today in terms of helping sort of really drive that entity first SEO. So let me just share my screen real quickly. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can see. And
Yep,
also,
all
I'm
good.
running a quick poll in the meanwhile, so people can answer some of the questions that we have and also learn what people are using InfraNodus for. So the question says, do you use InfraNodus for SEO LLMO? And then people are answering yes, no, or what it is if they don't know. So we'll just have the results. Jack, you have it ready now? The screen
Yep,
share is good? Okay. Yeah,
yep.
we see now
So
the Zoom
yeah,
webinar
the
page.
Zoom. So
Okay.
yeah, so going to run through sort of three flows that I personally use to yeah, sort of generate sort of transactional pages. So those solutions, use case, like jobs to be done type of pages specifically in like a yeah for a SaaS context, but can be obviously more broadly applied. Also identifying semantic gaps between sort of your site and competitors' site, sort of give that better context into what opportunities there are for you in sort of search, and then sort of yeah, creating an overall sort of topical graph for your domain. So yeah, let's jump into it. So in the sort of the product here, go into the app screen. So to start with, I always like to get just a ontology graph of an overarching topic. So for the example, we'll use project management software as most sort of SaaS examples do. So name your graph, then powerful. Visualize. So what this does is essentially, yeah, give us an ontological, it's always a mouthful, graph of sort of an overarching sort of topic or the sort of essentially the page we're wanting to create. So as we can see here with the brackets sort of signify and like sort of the main entities. So for this graph, it's all in that regard. So we can. Oh, my zoom's a bit funny. So we see here we get sort of just an overarching sort of view of the topic, and then let me move myself. Can toggle on the sort of high level ideas, which we can see in the sort of the discourse panel. So this essentially gives us a sort of almost a guide sort of weighting in terms of how you want to approach sort of creating a transactional page for project management software. So as we can see here that sort of collaboration software is the sort of the main sort of sub-entity of the page, and then sort of a third of the sort of the weighting, and can sort of yeah see the quite important elements of the sort of the page that we or of the yeah the entity that we need to cover in the page. So also got the different sort of tabs here, so you can look in and see content gaps. So something that's sort of the discourse panel suggests connecting is the collaboration aspect with the time management. So we'll also get more insights into this sort of thing in the next graph we build out. Can also see the sort of the relations in a sort of yeah vectorized fashion with the actual sort of mathematical approach. So yeah, I use this as a base to sort of yeah really get that understanding of what sort of a topic has sort of encompasses, which is sort of quite useful, especially going into the more use case driven pages and things that aren't as sort of necessarily as straightforward as something like sort of yeah, project management software. So once I've sort of got this graph and I've had sort of a bit of a scan and to sort of get a better understanding of the sort of the overarching topic. I'll then go back to the app screen, go through keyword research and SEO, then under Google, do the same. Important to name your graphs so you can find them. And then you've also got the options to analyze either the snippet of the results or the extracted pages. So my preferred approach is to go sort of via the extracted pages. So analyzing sort of the first 10 pages. So it's sort of going much, in my opinion, goes deeper versus sort of going more broadly across a larger number of searches. And then you can use the sort of the words and detected entities, or the only the detected entities. So for sort of simplicity, we'll just use the detected entities, as that makes the graph a bit more friendly in a sort of screen sharing environment like this. So while this sort of takes a minute to generate, I'll see if I can check if I have any questions. Where's the chat gone?
I see that there are no questions yet in the
No
chat,
questions. Okay.
so I can be monitoring it for you also, and you can just
Yeah.
ask
Okay.
me.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
because it's
can't.
always hard to switch in between the two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know where it's
Hmm.
gone actually now,
Yeah.
so
Hmm.
it's quite always a bit of a challenge. So
Yeah. Yeah. If you have any questions, like we said, you can always post them to the webinar chat on the Q&A section as well. And also, if you're watching it on YouTube, we also have the chat open there. And then I'm just gonna pass it on to Jack if you have anything to ask. So feel free to also, like, if you don't know what SEO is, even if you just have a general question why he's doing what he's doing, then also feel free to ask that as well. And maybe in the meanwhile, yeah, now it loaded, so then I will do another poll later. Okay, back to you.
yeah. So as we can see here, this is quite a comprehensive graph. So thus I sort of just went with the detected entities to make it a bit more digestible. So that's something again that you could go back and do again to get an even broader sort of understanding. So we can see here the main sort of topics that are coming up from those sort of 10 pages in search are obviously the tool aspect of it, as it's the software intent query. Then you've also got agile management, the collaboration interface, and data privacy, which is obviously a big part of software in this capacity, considering the sort of the enterprise angle to it. So we can then also go sort of content gaps as well. So this is essentially sort of identifying the sort of the gaps in search. So obviously sort of data privacy and then sort of connecting that on the home page is sort of not something that you're going to go into on the home page necessarily. So but yeah, that is a gap. It's sort of probably the main gap. Yeah, it's the sort of that data privacy element, which is sort of a good insight to potentially help in terms of forming your page to really add that. Okay, you can see sentiment, which is obviously going to be majority neutral and positive. Then again, the sort of the key relations between these entities. So as we can see here, Asana is sort of one of the more occurring and stronger ones, which is a good sign if you're sort of from the Asana that and then click up as well. So this is ideally if you're sort of looking at your sort of company and you search your sort of your software, like your type of software, and if you're sort of coming up in these graphs as a sort of an entity, it's sort of a good way to check that as well. So we can also then, as this is quite a large amount of information to try and digest, we can go up here and sort of remove that sort of top layer to an extent. So this sort of takes away like the overarching. So yeah, software tool, project management, then Trello, project management as an entity itself. Might actually go one more. And then this way you've actually got sort of a better visibility into sort of looking at some of those sort of smaller but relevant entities. So, for example, obviously a competitor being ClickUp in this example, we can then click on ClickUp and see what those connections are for ClickUp. So you can see here that they've sort of connected with startups. So that indicates that sort of the positioning they have on their page is sort of to startups versus if we go find Asana, you can sort of see that they are, do they have an enterprise? That's quite interesting. So to remote work, obviously task management, data, Jira. So yeah, sort of the connection between Asana and Jira sort of yeah indicates a heavy emphasis on that sort of engineering side of things. So yeah, this is my sort of starting point and sort of can literally give you enough to like build out a page from. So I sort of ran this example yesterday. So can everyone see my Claude now? You got
Yes.
that?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, we can see it.
So just to sort of show how like powerful these two graphs are, sort of yeah, with those two graphs, I made them yesterday and put this in as the prompt to analyze, and gives you the analysis, key gateways, relations, key gaps from search, sort of the main topical clusters as well, and concepts, top relations. So from this, you could then take this to develop an outline, or as I've done in this, just to show the sort of how powerful it is. I sort of prompted that I was creating a sort of a new SaaS product as a called Projector. Sort of gave brief prompt in terms of context. So you got to think as well, like when you're doing this, you're going to have all the context around like your ICPs, your buyer, sales calls, those really sort of first party data pain points, which are only going to give the Claude MCP like more context into developing the page. Sort of the short prompt in terms of role and approach sort of gave me the brief, and then just because it's always fun to see, this was a one shot. So as we scroll down, I then got it to develop a sort of an actual page with no brand design guidelines or anything. And as you can actually see, it's a pretty good sort of um, sort of page. So it is sort of quite incredible that with 5 minutes, sort of a couple of graphs in InfraNodus, you can essentially one shot a enterprise project management software. So more than happy to sort of paste the prompt I used, but it was sort of nothing too crazy. So just more showing the power of that semantic based approach. So for the I suppose that might be a good place to pause for questions if there's any questions there, Dmitry.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you, so the first question is from me actually, like you basically generated those graphs and then you plugged those insights into Claude, and Claude, based on the insights from the graph, it generates for you like a landing page. But what's great is that it takes into account all the important semantic relations, and then you make sure like this that it will generate highly relevant landing page,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah,
that's
so
how it works.
that's and as well, that's yeah, sort of as I mentioned, like that's actually with no sort of context around like yeah, sort of the business. It's a made up company that sort of I described in a couple of sentences. So just yeah, imagine having that sort of context to internal context to then sort of go alongside with the sort of yeah the semantic insights. So yeah, it's incredibly sort of simple and basically yeah just guides Claude into how to actually sort of create in a regard that's sort of well, yeah feasible and targeted to sort of the pain points that you're actually sort of looking to solve and the gaps in search. So I've sort of done this in the past and then sort of fed the sort of the page that the sort of the output it generated and sort of would pass through like AI content detectors as human written content for the most part, which is also quite incredible as well, considering how typically sort of yeah ChatGPT and sort of generated content it reads and always picks up as sort of yeah AI generated. So it's yeah
Mm,
pretty amazing that you can sort of basically create a SaaS products core set of pages in like 10 minutes. So it's
right.
yeah definitely one of my favorite use cases.
hmm we actually have a question from Chase, which is related to what we were just discussing. He was asking, um, I'm interested in spearheading knowledge graph slash LLM tooling for SEO with a few SEO teams. Can you help distill why the AI ontology graphs are helpful for non-technical folks after reviewing how to use the tool? So he was basically asking why this kind of graphs are important. Like maybe I can start and then you can also add what
Yeah.
you find useful in it. But basically, so InfraNodus originally can build graphs from anything. Like you can also build graphs from words, and actually this is how it was originally working, that it was just operating with keywords only. And then we added this possibility to also build graphs from entities. And what happens there is that instead of representing every word as a node and every occurrence as a relation, now it's the relations between the entities which are extracted from the text. In this case, it was search results and also AI generated content. Like here, the AI ontology, it's basically you're kind of peeking into how AI thinks about a certain topic. So, for example, the graph that you're seeing right now that Jack is sharing was the AI ontology on project management software, right? And what AI does under the hood is that it generates statements from its training set, uh, kind of like generalized statements that explain what it thinks about project management software. And that basically means what people think about this topic, right? And then it does it in a way where it would connect the related ideas together. So this knowledge graph allows you to have a simplified overview of the main relations and ideas present inside the text. And in this case, in this domain, in this topic. And why it's important to answer the question of Chase is because not only you just get like a very good understanding very quickly of what this topic is about, because if you just look at the graph, you already see that, okay, it's about project management software. There is like a cluster on agile practices, iterative development. So it's about like implementing agile practices, but also you have another cluster on the left on cloud-based and distributed teams. So remote work as well. So you understand quickly, okay, it's about some framework of how you work together. It's about remote work. Then you have another cluster on time tracking tools. It's also about time management. So you have a very quick visual understanding of the topic that would take you much longer to research. And here you have it visually represented. And also, as you all know, when we have visual information as humans, we're very good at picking up patterns and also remembering things. So that makes it very easy for us to kind of like get this idea sort of ingrained in our perception what this is about. But another very important aspect is that this is also how most of the search engines and AI systems work when you ask them anything. Uh, you all know that they're based on vector representations. And basically what you're looking at right now is a simplified 2D version of how AI thinks. And for instance, if you're thinking about, let's say you're working like on a time tracking tool and you would like to have your tool appearing in the recommendations of LLMs when anyone is asking their favorite ChatGPT or whatever they use about time tracking. So for example, this graph shows you that, okay, in the minds of LLMs and people, time tracking is connected to time management, deadline adherence. Then you have also a connection to project management. So you kind of see how LLM would think contextually about this topic. And if you want to make sure that you appear in the search results or in an LLM output for this particular topic, you need to talk about this stuff. And the same thing here, like project management is the main topic here. So we see all the different clusters that I listed earlier, like agile processes, remote work, time management. You understand that, okay, you need to touch on all these topics so that LLM thinks that you're highly relevant in the field, because that's what most of the people will be thinking about or expect to see when they think about project management. So you're kind of not only understanding how people think about a certain thing, but also how search engines and AI thinks. You have this very simple representation. And then if you use this as a scaffolding to build your content, it's like you cover the most important subjects and parts with your content. And then LLMs will consider you to have topical authority in the field because you, you're covering all these different entities, topics, and you're not just operating in keywords, but you're operating in entities. And now we've moved already, like, let's say maybe like 20 years ago, it was based on keywords. Now it's thinking more in terms of entities. So that's what we're also representing here. Do you have anything to add, Jack, to that?
No, that was a really good explanation. Just yeah, sort of pile on the end there in terms of the sort of it's the evolution of sort of SEO. So it was once very keyword driven, and then as we look back, like that evolved because you just had people that were shoving keywords into articles, hiding them in different colored text. That evolved into a more balanced ranking system, and then this is probably it's sort of been happening for a while, but especially now with the LLMs, like it's the approach to sort of SEO you should be taking. So this is more so like this is my starting point, like how you would used to go to an Ahrefs or a SEMrush to get sort of topic understanding and keyword data. This is sort of your new starting point. You're getting an understanding of what is the entity that you're trying to create content for, what's related to that, and then writing content for that, not trying to sort of fit in headers because this keyword's got X amount of search volume a month. So it's essentially just the next evolution in how we approach developing sort of content and overarching sort of organic strategies.
Right. So yeah, for non-technical folks, I would just say that this is like a skeleton or the scaffolding that represents how people and LLMs by extension think about a certain topic. And then when you want to create content, you just make sure that whatever it is that you're talking about uses the same sort of uh, entities like we have here, the elements, and that they combine in a similar way. And then, of course, you have the special sauce then that you can add later when you look at the gaps. So, for example, what Jack was also showing, that you have this content gaps feature there, right? And then it shows you what are the topics that LLMs or the existing content usually don't connect, right? So maybe if you think of a connection between these two topics, you can also introduce a novel way of thinking or a novel idea into the field because no one is connecting them yet. Of course, you might have a situation when it's two completely unrelated topics, but most of the time you will actually stumble upon the existing gaps, which are not yet filled by most of the content. So then it's going to make sure that your content has like a unique angle, and usually Google and LLM like it because if everyone is talking about the same thing in the same way, but someone else comes and adds something to the discourse while also mentioning the other important stuff, so makes like a novel connection, then it's going to rank higher. So this is why also graphs is such a powerful tool for that. And then also Eric was asking, I'm curious if there is a way to also extract the predicate relationships for the entities, for example, buying ClickUp versus learning ClickUp or using ClickUp. So you can do that just by changing the search query that you make. So when Jack was just doing like a general search on project management software, which didn't have any intention, right? Like you could also make the same search by just adding the search phrase that you're interested in, buying ClickUp or learning ClickUp, and seeing how the different results appear based on this approach. So you can really sort of like change it by that, by the query that you're making. I hope that answers your question, Eric. Then there was a question if the recording is going to be there, and yes, it's going to be on our YouTube channel. I will send a link to it later, but you will also all receive a link to the video. Of course, you cannot ask the questions live if you watch the recording. So it's nice that you joined in and that you stay with us, so then we can also explore your questions. Then Justin is saying that they want his team to see this so that he can put the tool to work for them. So that's great that you find it interesting. Thank you, Justin. Then, okay, we have... Right. So Eric is also asking, how do we get from InfraNodus to Claude? So maybe I can also show it later, or maybe Jack wants to demonstrate it in slightly more detail, but basically, yeah, we can demonstrate it later. And then Ryan is asking, how does AI establish content authority? Is there a way for InfraNodus to highlight the potential high scoring content to establish a new high ranking content authority score? So basically what you're seeing on the graph, like on the first graph of ontologies, this is already what AI thinks is important for the topic. So these are all the things that are most important for having a topical authority. And because you have the representation of that graph also based on clusters, like if you go to main ideas, for instance, or even on the AI insights, you have this main clusters, right? So this is also, yeah, exactly those that Jack is showing right now. So these are the actual clusters of topics inside this theme of project management software that AI considers to be important. So you already have by default the most important topics here. And those topics that have less entities will be less important. But the importance and the influence here is calculated on a special metric called between centrality. And to explain it, I always like to just tell people to think of that network as a social network. So if you think of this domain as a group, and then all the different entities are like people that like to hang out together. And those people that like to hang out more together, they will be closer to each other on the graph. And those who connect to many diverse groups, they will be bigger. So this is how we establish the importance, the size, the ranking here. And just like in a social network, if you have a concept like, for example, here, project management software that connects a lot of different groups together. So it's like this person connects a lot of diverse groups of other people / entities together. It means that they have high influence. And sometimes you have really nice elements where something will not be frequently mentioned maybe, but it's going to rank higher because it actually connects the most diverse set of topics. So that's interesting because it's not just based on frequency. It's like with the groups of people, you might have someone who has a lot of connections, but it's the person who maybe has less connections, but is connected very strategically well that you want to approach and work with. So that's also like a very interesting insight that you can get from here that you would not see from Ahrefs or SEMrush tables that don't show you this information. Because here we actually can see ranking based on this connectivity in the general discourse, which is quite interesting as well. So yeah, just think about it as a social network, and then it's very clear how to use the graphs. Then there is a question from Eric again, how do we feed it to Claude? So we really will show this in a second. And then, so Walter is saying, I doubt this process helps your CEO. I don't see user needs data in the graph, so your content doesn't solve prospects' problems and therefore won't rank well. Well, that's nice to occasionally get some criticism. This is great because usually it's quite positive feedback. So Walter, I don't know if you work with SEO, but generally what Jack just showed you now is the representation of what exists out there already in the minds of LLM and in the Google search results. You can also analyze search intent the same way. This is something I actually wanted to show you later how it's done. There is a special feature inside InfraNodus that also helps you analyze what people are actually searching for. And so to address your concerns, you're right, then you can add this information as well into your graphs. Jack actually has some of those graphs there. I think like if you go to the menu, the ones that start with the keywords, it's actually exactly those. So maybe you can open one of them like this one. Yeah. So this is for example, a representation of what people search for when they search for project management. And if you delete project management software, so usually what you do here is that you have to remove this top layer to see then what's hiding underneath. And this gives you a representation of what people are actually searching for the most. So for example, we see that, okay, if in the Google search results, let's say an important element or in the LLM output, the important element was, for example, agile process. Here we see that the main topic is task management, actually. So a lot of people, when they search for project management software, they're interested in task management planning tools. Also, Microsoft Teams is a big one. So this gives us information about intention. And then we have actually concrete numbers, like if you open filter, maybe at the left, there you can actually filter by the number of searches. So it's exactly what you're talking about. And you can add this analysis and highlight the most searched for phrase combinations in the graph and see here actually turns out almost all of them are quite popular. But as you can see, as Jack is removing some, then for example, only the actual top ones are like Microsoft tools. So for example, if you're making a page which is about your own project management tool, and you know that people search for Microsoft Teams, you will probably want to make some comparison page why your software beats Microsoft Teams and Microsoft tools. So that's how you would also approach that. Then let me move on further because we have quite a few questions. So I just want to make sure we cover them. Okay, so as I look at the nodes, Eric says, how does it prioritize something like time tracking tool versus customization options? I already answered that, I think, by using the between essentiality ranking. Then Justin says, we built a large amount of content each week based on topical maps. Is there a way to use your tool as a gap analysis tool based on a topic versus competitor gap analysis? So yeah, it's exactly what Jack was demonstrating when he clicked on content gaps. You can find content gaps in the existing content. So for example, here we will see content gaps in what people search for. But if you go to, for example, Google search results page, then you will see gaps in the existing content. And that can be actually pretty informative because you see what content people put out there, but what topics they're not connecting. So this is your insight where you could go, especially if you compare it with search intent then later. And then if you want to study, for example, competition, as you say, Justin, then you can also analyze the websites of your competition. We actually have some other person who's using InfraNodus who's just doing that, and they have an amazing workflow. I hope to invite them once to also share it in the webinar, or maybe if some of you are doing that, you can also share it in the next webinars. So you basically plug in like a lot of content. So for example, here, right, Jack, is this the map of the competition website?
Yeah, so this is sort of naturally evolves into sort of something else. So the next element that was sort of going to talk about, which is quite good. So this is, yeah, essentially just the topical map of Monday.com. So Monday.com is a project management software. So you're able to do this for your own domain or competitors' domains to sort of see that, for example, you can look at the gaps that they have in their sort of domain or sort of homepage, especially sort of based upon like the ontology graph that we're looking at first, and just sort of get an overarching summary of essentially like their positioning and sort of how they frame and sort of try and sell the product and what they're sort of targeting in the market. And then another cool thing we can do is, so I've also done a graph on Zoho.com, which is another project management software. So you're able to go and compare. So we can go differs from Zoho.com and visualize. So this is a really good way to very quickly see how you sort of differ from your competitor from a positioning standpoint and the sort of topical coverage that you have as well. So we can see here, this is in Zoho.com, but not in Monday.com. So it really easily shows us that Zoho.com is sort of much more focused around the data visualization and the CRM integration. So that sort of gives us a good insight. And if we're Monday.com, that could be sort of gives us the sort of example of things to sort of look into a bit further. So we can also flip that, which gives us the other perspective. So what's in Monday.com, but not in Zoho.com. So remove that sort of top layer and then, yeah, sort of get the big sort of positioning around the sort of the workflow dynamics and sort of, yeah, like some of this obviously you're going to get is the sort of elements that both have, but might just have coverage of different levels on sort of the homepage. So yeah, that's sort of another cool use case that I think, yeah, Dmitry was going to talk about. So do you have anything you sort of want to add in that regard, Dmitry, while we're on the topic?
No, I think that you actually covered it pretty well. I think it's exactly this. Like it really allows you to see how you're different from the competitors, or what the competitors are missing also. Like even here, you see that, for example, one company is focusing more on team collaboration, while another one maybe has other focuses, so you can understand their strong and weak sides, and you can combine them also. Um, I think also like a lot of people asked you to show them how you went into Claude. So do you think that you could demonstrate like a little bit how this happens when you just like go into Claude? Or do you want me to show maybe how to connect the MCP server, and then you could show how you actually prompt Claude? What do you think would
Yeah,
be?
no, that's yeah, it's a good idea. So I'll stop share and
Okay, then
let
I'm gonna
you
share.
yeah, show how to sort of connect.
Yeah. So I think now I am sharing my Claude. You should all be seeing my Claude screen. So basically, when you have Claude, you have this function here that allows you to add connectors to it. And you can use it both in your cloud version of Claude, or if you have a desktop version, you have it also as well. And all you do is that you need to go to Manage Connectors, and then it's going to ask you to add a custom connector. So you will click here, and then you'll give it a name, and then you will give it the MCP server URL. And this information you can get on infranodus.com/MCP. So I'm gonna write it also in the chat, and you can read more information on this page about how to install it. But basically, it's a link from a service that's called Smithery. It looks like this. So you would just go to Smithery, then create an account here, then copy that link, and then you will of course need your API key and everything else. And then when you're in the connectors, manage connectors, that's the link that you copy here like this. And then it's going to ask you also the API key, which you can provide. And there you have the connector activated. So it's pretty easy and straightforward, just a few copy and paste stuff. And then once you have a new chat, you'll see here that in your connectors, you will have InfraNodus MCP server activated. And I think most of the people know what MCP servers are, but basically it's something that allows your LLM to talk to your favorite tools. So you can have MCP servers for your Google Mail, for your calendars and so on. So then it means that each time you ask Claude, oh, can you make me an appointment for tomorrow at this time? It's going to connect to your calendar. Actually, here it only has search, so it can only search the the appointments you have and tell you, yes, you have this time free and so on. And in InfraNodus, what it does, it actually connects to the different tools that InfraNodus has inside. And then you can use these tools to sort of like work with the different features that InfraNodus has. So for example, we have altogether, I think, around 20 tools. You can generate a knowledge graph, find gaps in the text, find main topics. Do SEO analysis is like a tool in itself. So this is exactly what Jack, I think, was doing. He was just using this InfraNodus server. And then basically, maybe now I will share back to you, Jack, and you can just show again your screen with Claude just to show in this existing session what kind of prompt you gave and what it looked like.
Sorry, forgot to unmute myself. So yeah, very easy. So just sort of going off the two graphs we were comparing with Zoho and Monday. So all you need to do is come into Claude and you can frame it as simply as just access my InfraNodus graphs, then just put in the names of the graph and then analyze the differences. The MCP will then go pull the graphs by the existing name, and then can we'll spit out a sort of an analysis. So from a structural overview, from a semantic perspective. So if you're sort of looking at things from a sort of a very sort of more technical side, also bring out the sort of summarize the core positioning. So especially if you're sort of working as a consultant or things like that, it sort of enables you to get an understanding of sort of your client's competitors' positioning like incredibly quickly and sort of get a lay of the land from a sort of a search perspective in terms of the sort of competition as well. So sort of actually dives into the sort of semantic coverage that each has. So sort of goes into what Zoho has and Monday lacks, and then vice versa. So if you're one of these brands and sort of comparing against your main competitor, it gives you sort of a really good contextual understanding of sort of where your gaps might be and what sort of content you should develop to sort of help fill those, or potentially sort of change your positioning of the product itself to a degree to sort of include sort of content on something that you're sort of specifically missing, and then sort of can follow up from like the content gap perspectives, and then sort of ask like, oh, what are some topics that I should be covering? Like how should I use this information? And we'll give you sort of really good context in that regard to build a strategy from, or even just sort of build out immediate sort of content pieces that you should be creating. So really helpful in that regard. So you can also go the other way as well. So as we come here, I've gone using all my InfraNodus graphs on project management software, develop a topical graph of Monday.com. So this probably wasn't framed in the best regard. So you sort of essentially wanting to, so say, for example, in this case where Monday.com, we're wanting to sort of use all of those insights to sort of build out what our ideal topical graph should look like. So sort of put the prompt in, then goes sort of quite thorough, and analyzing our existing ones, then creating graphs as well to sort of, it feels like, look at specific elements, and then sort of actually get that graph created in InfraNodus, as well as sort of providing an overview of the sort of the content that should be sort of developing in the key sort of semantic relationships and the main opportunities. So we go back here. So this is the graph that that sort of MCP flow created. So sort of with a much more detailed and better prompt than that, you're able to sort of come out with essentially a rough guide for sort of how you should be approaching sort of building out the sort of the content on a site and the sort of the entities that you're actually looking to drive and connect. So it sort of gives that sort of that blueprint that I suppose in the only real comparison I can think of in terms of how else you could do this is sort of like the for those of you that have used or use SEMrush with the sort of the topical graph feature that they have now. This is just sort of a far superior version of that in the sense that you're actually getting a almost the understanding of how AI search engines, so LLMs especially, go from sort of the core. So, for example, here this would be sort of project management software, and sort of the relevant sort of connections it would go to get to, for example, like enterprise, like what's key to project management enterprise, and you work back from there. You've got automation features, then customer journey, sort of on that CRM growth, strategy template, automation again. So you sort of get that much deeper level of understanding. You want to sort of add anything to that, Dmitry?
No, I think it's good. It's a pretty good demonstration. Yeah, exactly. So I hope that also explains how Jack goes from InfraNodus to Claude, and then he also demonstrated how he kind of reads these insights, and you can actually do that from the graph itself. But for example, if some people find that graph is a bit too complicated to read, then MCP server inside Claude is a pretty good way to just get the general insights. And then, as Jack was saying, he's generating a prompt then based on those insights, and then this prompt generates content. So this is really like end-to-end strategy from research to content creation. So yeah, I think it's a pretty useful approach. And then we also have a question from John who asks, can the MCP be accessed from Claude on browser? Yeah, that's exactly what Jack was doing right now. So yeah, it's from the browser. Or if he was not doing that from the browser, I was demonstrating it from the browser. So yes, you can access it also from the browser. And then Eric was asking, when using the API to connect InfraNodus to Claude, does it get pretty expensive? I'm not sure if we're talking about a fraction of penny or hundreds of dollars per use. I mean, for you, it's the same price. So when you're paying your monthly fee, you get a certain number of API requests. And then basically, like if you're on a higher tier, then you will be less likely to rate hit rate limits. So yeah, it's basically like you're always limited to the amount that you're paying per month. The AI is not the most expensive part, to be honest, in this whole process. Like if you were
Yeah,
to,
I can add
Mhm.
on
Yeah,
to that from a sort of my perspective. So yeah, it's no nothing from the InfraNodus side. It's just the sort of yeah the Claude sort of rate limit. So yeah, like if you've got like a few clients, like the sort of I think that it's called the max plan on Claude, it'd be fine. And I think that's like a sort of would be at most if you're sort of using it quite heavily, probably like 300 USD for the month. But that's sort of if you're using it quite a lot. So otherwise, I'd say it'd be sort of less than 200 USD a month to sort of be running sort of flows in this regard, sort of daily on Claude. So
right. So yeah, if you're referring to the actual API limits of the AI itself, like I'm using Claude, for example, the one that saw on my screen was just a monthly, like 20 euro a month fee. And I never hit their limits. The only problem I was experiencing before is that when you're working with graphs and it generates like really long graphs for you, then you hit the context limit of Claude. But I think they fixed it like a few weeks ago, so it's much more rare now, and you don't hit the rate limits. Like this is the only thing that can happen is that the context window is too big. But I never ran into an issue where it said that I used all the context window and stuff like that. But as Jack said, if you're on a higher tier plan, like if you're using it a lot, then probably it's useful for you. So it's probably gonna pay back anyway. And then also Eric was asking you, Jack, hey Jack, SaaS is clearly very competitive in SEO. and I'm certain there must be some manual review of everything you publish. How much of your research and content outline does it handle for you? Would you say that it's doing about 50% of the work, more, less?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, for obviously for sort of topics that you're not as familiar with, it takes sort of a bit more time to sort of review and sort of make sure everything's right because you're actually sort of needing to sort of dig through the graphs sort of a lot more manually to get that understanding. But sort of once you've got that contextual understanding of a topic and especially sort of, if you're working with a client and sort of how their software is positioned, the use cases, sort of how it's different from their competitors and sort of, once you've got that nuance, then the sort of the flow I showed first for the sort of building out the transactional pages, I'll use that to sort of get an outline and then sometimes maybe to sort of develop a draft of the page. So sort of I showed the one shot, but I'm not sort of necessarily sort of just publishing a straight one shot. Despite that one was actually sort of quite good considering the sort of, no real context around sort of the business itself. It was just purely from the sort of the graph insights. But it's definitely probably it's over 50% in terms of the um, sort of end-to-end flow. So it sort of takes and is majority of the sort of the research and sort of developing the foundation for the page itself. Then I'll use that to then spit out the outline for the page. So it really gives you the detailed sort of semantic brief in regards to sort of what you should be sort of the key sort of entities you need to connect, how to frame it, and then from there we'll sort of develop the page, especially if it's for like a homepage or something that's sort of really integral. I'll still sort of develop that myself, but for sort of a lot of use case and feature pages where there can be sort of a bit more on the like repetitive side, they're very sort of structured in that regard. You can sort of use sort of the flow I showed to sort of spit out a draft. So whenever I'm creating sort of content, it is the starting point of my sort of workflows to really build out a sort of an understanding of the key entities to connect and that sort of thing. So hopefully that sort of gave you a bit of an insight and answered your question.
Yeah, thank you, Jack. I'm just going to launch another poll so we can all see what tools people are using already. So if you could please answer that, and then I will also address some of the questions we have in the chat still. Eric, thank you for everything. So I think you answered his questions, and he said that it's been super helpful. And then we also had a person saying that it's very confusing to have a mess of tangled words if Claude can just say what the top keywords are in the set of documents, but it's coming from someone who has been writing to me repeatedly on LinkedIn. I had to mute this person. He has like a very specific idea about SEO and stuff. So if you say that Claude can just spit out the insights for you without using any other tools, you're free to do that. But you will just get very generic results because here we're talking about entities and relations. And if you just need a list of keywords, I mean, good luck with that. But he also tried to advertise his project there. But I think with this approach, it's just not going to get to the top of Google and LLM search results. So yeah, unfortunately, Alex, I think you don't know what you're talking about. And then we have another question from John, who was asking, does the MCP work with Cursor? Yes, you actually can connect it to any LLM client. So if you have it like running on Cursor, Windsurf, can be VS Code. You can even connect it to ChatGPT also. So yeah, like anything that basically has MCP functionality, you can add the InfraNodus MCP server to it. And you can use all the workflows that you usually would do in InfraNodus. And you can also launch this special SEO workflows and also develop a text. So if you're a writer, for instance, can be very interesting for you to use InfraNodus to find those gaps and develop them further. And I'm going to share the results of the poll now because it's pretty interesting. It's the tools that people use. So do you all see it now on the screen? Jack, are you seeing the results shared?
No, they haven't come up for me.
Okay.
Mary
Maybe
said no as
now.
well. Ah, yep, got them
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. So actually, most of the people answered they're using AI tools and then automations. So, and then Google Search Console. Uh, Specialized tools not so popular with the webinar viewers. And then, yeah, it's interesting that a lot of people use AI tools, and I think like that's why this also like this question of why not just use Claude? I mean, yeah, it's pretty interesting because it's true. Like, why wouldn't you use it? But I think it's again this idea of what kind of insights you want to get. Do you want to get the insights that everyone else gets, or you want to see the connections? Do you also want to use the graph to maybe clean up the context to kind of dive into the more specific topics? So this is where InfraNodus can be very helpful. And then you will also be doing something that other people are not. And that's why on the front page of InfraNodus, we also have this headline, find what everyone else is missing. So that's the approach here. And I think,
Yeah, Justin's just said context is everything, which is yeah, incredibly true. Like if you're like only using like ChatGPT or Claude to like create content, then you're going to end up with the same sort of opinions, insights, and sort of articles as everyone else, which is why we've seen through sort of countless studies that sort of AI generated content sort of doesn't work for the most part. And that's because it's essentially just a word salad of what already exists. So it's not that AI content sort of can't work if that's the sort of the approach you want to take, and that's a whole nother webinar in itself. But like this, yeah, sort of the especially the sort of the workflows that I've run through really give you a competitive advantage and a starting point that not really anyone else is coming from because they're coming from a very sort of outdated approach and sort of the approach that already exists within sort of that LLM context. So this just sort of gives you that leg up. So
yeah, exactly. I'm going to share the last poll that we have, and then if you have any questions to finish with, then feel free to ask them. In the meanwhile, you can maybe answer that poll that I'm sharing now, which is about for those using InfraNodus after gaining insights, what's the hardest part? Because for us, it's always good to know how we can actually uh, also improve the product for you. And also like realizing that InfraNodus itself can be quite complex to use. This is why we're also teaming up with Jack and his company, because we're starting this program that there will be special sort of systems integrators that work with InfraNodus. And Jack is going to take care of the SEO part. So if you have a business and you're looking for how to implement InfraNodus into your workflows and also other SEO tools, then you can contact Jack. We will soon have a dedicated page uh, on this offering. But for now, you can just write to us and we will connect you to Jack. So if anyone wants to explore these workflows in the context of their company and work with somebody who has implemented it in real life scenarios, then you can contact Jack and his company directly and he will help you uh, with these different workflows.
yeah, so also I just put my LinkedIn in the chat. So even if you just
Nice.
sort of have some more questions, feel free to reach out and sort of I'll be sort of around and can yeah get back to you now. So had some yeah very insightful questions and sort of comments in the chat that I was just sort of reading through now and yeah, like you're right, Alex, in the sense that this like does compound, and then you're able to sort of build on these insights with the sort of that first party data and context that you have to really build out sort of content that yeah, sort of none of your competitors are sort of coming close to. So
Yeah, let me also share the poll results. So we have also the results on what difficulties people have when they use InfraNodus. For those using InfraNodus after gaining insights, what's the hardest part? And most people said translating insights into content or strategy and measuring the impact of insights. So like to say how important those insights are and then also translating into content or and this is actually great feedback because this is one of the reasons also why we want to team up with Jack to help people actually turn those insights into something actionable and content. And Jack has this strategy that he demonstrated where he developed a prompt that can take your InfraNodus graphs and turn it into content or landing page. So that would be maybe like addressing more this part. And then in terms of measuring the impact of insights, I mean, there I think the only way is just to run experiments with them. So for example, I've been doing it myself, obviously, like as many of you probably know, InfraNodus is not funded by investors or any sort of government grants. It's like a totally bootstrap project. So I had to do all the promotion myself. And basically, I'm using all the techniques I'm using that I'm also sharing with you to also promote my own tool, my own work. I have other projects as well. And this was like the only way how I could get audience to actually learn about this stuff, especially in a very competitive market that we have now on AI and text analysis tools. Also, ads are very expensive, so like it worked for me, so that's why I'm sharing it. And I think the impact can just be measured using numbers. You know, you just make an experiment, get some insights from InfraNodus, see what you could add to your content, add this in, and then see how many more conversions you have, how many more visitors you have, and then estimate it yourself. So I think that's like the only way, just running A/B experiments, good old experiments, and seeing what impact it has. Then let me see if there is some more questions that we have. All right, so okay, I had a conflict. When will this webinar be available to view on YouTube? It's already streaming live. So basically you will have it directly available as soon as we finish. And if you go to YouTube now, to our channel, I'm going to send a link. Then you can see this webinar directly now. And Tom, we know each other for a long time. So if you have any questions, of course, feel free to write on Discord, on our support portal. And then we can answer any questions. And Jack just sent also a link to his services page. So if you would like some professional help in integrating all those workflows into your own projects, then I guess you can contact Jack as well. All right. Do you have anything to add, Jack, or shall we end here?
No, I think that's yeah, a good wrap up point. So hopefully some good insights we're able to sort of pass on to people. And yeah, if you've sort of got any questions, feel free to reach out.
Great. Thank you so much, Jack, for taking part in this webinar. I also would like to invite anyone who would like to also take part in the future webinars. Please join in. Let me know if you would like to also share your workflow, talk about your company or how you implemented it in some real life scenario. Maybe you're also a writer or researcher, so also very interested to share use cases about personal applications as well. And thank you to all the participants also. We went over 1 hour, so thank you for your time and attention. Really great, and for the wonderful questions as well. Also, I see some friends there. Dennis is there. Thank you, Dennis. And thank you, Kevin and Toby and Justin and everyone else, and Niels and Oliver. I cannot list everyone, but yeah, it was great to do it. And let us know if you have any questions and also your feedback about implementing these workflows into your own projects. After the webinar, you will receive a link with a little survey. So if you can give us feedback on whether you found it useful, if you could see some applications that you could also use in your own workflows, and maybe some comments, feedback, and maybe some topics for the future webinars, please let us know so we can integrate this and make sure that we continue doing interesting webinars for you. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Jack. Then we will.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, everyone.